Fellows Ride, der Podcast. Mit Gästen aus der Motorradszene übers Motorradfahren und mentale Gesundheit. So, hello and good morning and welcome to another episode of the Fellows Ride podcast. We are here today together with Dieter Schneider as mostly usual and with Charley Boorman, who is actually now sitting in England in an area called Surrey Hills. And Dieter is sitting at the Algarve in Portugal. And me, I'm sitting now today close to Frankfurt. For the people who don't know me yet, I'm just a Odenwald motor vlogger and the head of the Fellows Ride Odenwald. And Dieter, as the mastermind of the Fellows Ride, is going to introduce himself, I think. And then we're going to talk about Charley. Welcome, Charley Boorman.
Thank you.
Okay, should I start?
Yeah.
Eric, thank you, Eric, for hosting us. My name is Dieter, and I'm a motorbiker by passion. And I founded the Fellows Ride, but it's not really founding, it's just an idea I got in Australia when I was on my round the world tour. I had the pleasure to take part at the so-called Black Dog Ride in Australia. It's a ride, almost 6,000 motorbikers are on the road on this day, and it's a ride for depression help and suicide prevention. And coincidentally, I was in Melbourne and I was invited to attend this ride. And for me, with my story is that I'm indirectly affected with depression and suicide because my son committed suicide when he was 23 years old. It's almost 10 years ago. And so I was really involved when I attended this ride. And under my helmet, I was thinking, it would be a good idea to try a ride like this in Germany. So we started in 2021 with a couple of friends to organize the so-called Fellows Ride. So we call the Black Dog Ride in Australia, Fellows Ride in Germany. And we with a big success. In the second year, there were 4 Fellows Rides in Germany and Austria. And this year number 3, we are 14 Fellows Rides all over Germany, Austria, Romania, and even in Lisbon in Portugal. So at the 3rd of June, will be in Berlin for Fellows Ride. This maybe will be a bigger breakthrough because we are very close to the politics. So that is the reason why we are doing this. We want to raise awareness for depression help, because in Germany, in Europe, I think all over the world, this subject is a kind of taboo, and there's stigmas and everything. And I want just to write open-minded and talk about depression and this mental health thing as a normal, usual sickness, what it is. And the combination between motorbiking, passion, and a mental health thing obviously is a good thing, because motorbikers like it. They are involved, and this is maybe the recipe of the success of the Fellows Ride. And now we are starting this podcast, and actually we were forced to, because a lot of people said do a podcast because you have a lot of people around you from the community. So the first guest was Ted Simon, 92 years old motorbiker, still motorbiking. He's a crazy guy still. And we are very honored, Charley, and happy because on the wish list you are the number 1 as well. So we are very delighted to have you here with us and have a talk about motorbiking and mental health.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm very sorry to hear about your son.
Thank you.
I think it's very hard. It's a very hard thing to lose.
Oh yeah.
I lost a sister a number of years ago now, 26 years ago now. She had ovarian cancer and passed away and left a 6-year-old daughter behind. who then unfortunately her father died of lung cancer. Can you believe it? So quite awful. Anyway, but you were talking about riding, and and people talk about. I think people ask me, why do I ride a motorcycle?
Yeah.
And I said, well, one, because you have to drive a car, but you choose to ride a motorcycle, and I think it's something that's very joyous and very escapism. And there was a long time in my life, for 10 years, I was painting and decorating and doing people's houses up and stuff. In my acting career, I started off as an actor at the beginning. That's how I met Ewan McGregor. And my father was a film director who directed many, many movies, Deliverance, Excalibur, and Hope and Glory, and Point Blank, lots of fantastic movies. And as a family, we always traveled around to all these different countries in the world with my father as he made his movies. And then people say to me, and I remember, and I'm doing people's houses up and building and stuff wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so when I would ride my motorcycle back home from whatever job I was, that gave me the mindfulness, so that when I arrived home to my young little children, I was in the right frame of mind to spend time with my children. And I think always motorbikes have given me that meditation or that mindfulness, as we speak about openly now, which is fantastic. But I do remember when Ewan and I first did Long Way Round, and we were in North Africa, and from when my sister passed, my first child was born, and life was very busy, so never had really time to really think about my sister. And I remember sitting on the back of that motorbike, and I remember going past all those Second World War monuments and how terrible that part of Northern Africa was during the war. My thought of my sister kept coming back to me, and I remember very strongly sitting there and having the time to be able to think about her and maybe grieve a little bit many years later, And I remember having a little cry in my helmet, thinking about my sister. And so I think that's why, I think a lot of time that's why people ride motorcycles or ride horses or climb mountains or cycle or have a passion, for something that takes you away from your life and gives you escapism. So I think motorcycle riding is fantastic fun and very very good for mental health.
Yeah.
It reminds me, while you were telling this, of something Dieter told me in the beginning when we got to know each other. Riding through Africa, and under the helmet, you can cry as loud and nobody is going to hear it. That was something that impressed me very much when he told it to me.
Yeah, sure. Because I didn't know how to deal with the death of my son, because I was educated. Maybe you know that in this generation, my father said, "Boys don't cry," and crying for me it's a shame. So still I have problems to cry in public. Yeah. So, but under the helmet, I remember when I did this East Africa route as well. 2015, I went from Germany to Cape Town. I followed your route, so a long way down. And so in Sudan, it was fucking hot, 50 degrees in the Sahara Desert, and I was crying under the helmet. And I said, okay, nobody see me, so I can cry how much I want. And then I realized when I opened the visor. And it's really hot, riding through 50 degrees means you are riding against a hairdryer, and it's just almost burning on your skin. But the tears are cooling down. It's a nice feeling, So you switched your feeling from deep grief to happiness and say, it's feel very comfortable, feel very well. So your everything changed in this moment, and Yeah, this is motorbiking, and
But I think as well, I think I think it's a good thing to have that thing, nobody else around you to have a cry. But I think we're very lucky now that people are talking so much about mental health, and that men are in some way are taking their helmet off and crying with their friend, and when you're sitting with your best friend or your friend, and you turn to them and you say, are you okay? And they say yes. And but really, what's nice is to sort of say, are you really okay? And to have that little deep conversation. It doesn't have to be for half an hour. It could just be for a minute, But just to let the people that you care about most, because those are the only people when you pass, not the world is not going to remember you, but the people that you loved and loved you will always remember you, and so that's the important thing. And so to have that openness with your friends, I think is very important, and it's I think it's a good thing. I learned a lot of that from Ewan. Ewan is very open about things and loves to, wants to share and make sure that you're feeling okay. He's a very good, very wonderful person, but a tremendously fabulous person to travel with as well. Because I remember ages ago before we did Long Way Round, we were doing all this training and getting ready, and we were talking to this guy from the SAS, to get some tactical training and just get some endurance training and stuff like that. And he said, look, you can be the best of friends and you can plan the most fantastic journey, but he said, but that doesn't mean to say that it's going to work out, so you have to be prepared when you go off with a friend on a journey. You have to be prepared that you might not like each other.
Yeah, sure.
And at that point, it's better just to part friends and say, okay, it didn't work. I'll go my own way, and to be brave enough to do that is a good thing as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So that means you has the opportunity to go by yourself. So with two motorbikes, a longer stretch of time, because all the people were around you with camera and everything.
Yeah.
Because the longest I was with a guy with a compañero was in South America. It was 5 months with a Mexican guy from Mexico City. And 5 months on the bike, so that means 24 hours. So we shared a room.
But I mean, always the great savior of a friendship on a motorbike is that you both get on your own motorbike for most of the day.
Yeah.
So and then what's really nice about that, and what you and I would, I'd often wonder, at the end of each day, what would we have to talk about, because we've been together all day. Yeah. And anyway, we would get to the end of the day and we'd sit by the fire, the campfire, whatever. We'd be making our camp or our food, before it gets dark. And then you would say, "Oh, Charlie, did you see that when we came around that corner back there? Did you see that waterfall on the left-hand side? God, it was beautiful." And I was thinking, "Shit, no, I didn't see the waterfall. I missed that. I must have been looking." And yes, but you saw the waterfall. Yeah, but what about the lake? Did you see the lake? And he goes, "What lake?" So suddenly you realize you have actually a tremendous amount to talk about at the end of each day. And that person you met that day in that village, who helped you for directions or helped you, I don't know, whatever it was for, and those experiences are nice. But I think when Ewan and I decided to do Long Way Round, the first one, in the beginning, we were just going to go, just the two of us were going to go and do a longer journey. Our friendship was completely based on motorcycles. We met on a movie while I was in that 10-year period when I was doing people's houses up. I would do the occasional movie, still trying to be an actor, and we met and we did everything with motorbikes, track days around racetracks. We'd go for long weekends. And that's when we decided to do a longer journey. And then I quickly realized I didn't have any money. So and Ewan had plenty of money. He'd just done Star Wars. But we needed to figure out a way of the way I could be able to afford to do it, because 4.5 months. And anyway, someone mentioned about a book. And so we thought we'd get a book. So we spoke to some people about a book, and that seemed like a good idea. And that seemed, two friends going off around the world, no idea what's going to happen. Fantastic, great basis for a book. And then we got the book deal, but then I sort of reminded each other that I'm dyslexic. He can't write either. So we thought, how are we going to write the book? So we thought we'd make these video diaries, and we could use the video diaries to make the book with another person to help us write the book, because we're not writers, and so we did that. And then we thought, well, if we're going to do the video diaries, maybe we should make a video. So then we thought, we'll make a TV show. So we thought we'd make a TV show. And then, but then we didn't want film crews following us. So we had Claudio Bonplanta, the cameraman who came with us. So, for about 3 or 4 days at a time, it would just be the three of us. And Claudio would film. And then if we did a UNICEF project or a big story came about, I don't know if you remember when we met Igor in Ukraine, who was the sort of mafia guy. We then rang up the crew and said, look, guys, this is a really interesting family. You must come. But it took them 6 hours to meet up, So we tried as much as possible to keep that little threesome going together. And so that, because we thought that if you were 6 people, people would never invite you to their house. There's too many people, So that's why we tried to keep it small. And then every 4 or 5 days, we'd meet up with the crew. We'd give the video that we filmed, which was really precious, so that was safe. And then we would move on.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That was that. Yeah, so it was good fun.
Yeah, actually, there are 2 stages of influencing the community of motorcycle traveling. The first one is Ted Simon with his Jupiter's Traveling, for sure. The second are you and Ewan with this TV show. So everybody knows it, and you have done a big favor to the industry. But sometimes I think.
I don't know. I mean, I think I think both Ewan and I had read Ted Simon's book, and I think he was certainly.
You met him in where, in Nepal, or?
No,
Mongolia.
When we were getting the TV show together, we spoke to him about his travels, and we sort of briefly met him, but we invited him to come to Mongolia, because in his second book, Return to Jupiter. He talked about that the world had changed and that it wasn't the same, but was it not the same? But I'm not sure how much it's changed. I think it just changed for him,
Yeah, sure.
And his memory of what it was like then, is different to what it's like now. But so we said to him, listen, well, why don't you join us in Mongolia and we can ride together, because it's still Mongolia, even today, is still. Extremely remote, and very little has changed really in Mongolia. It's still incredibly difficult to go across, to travel across. I mean, I remember when Ewan and I did it. I think it took us 18 days of camping. Every night for 18 days to camp. And it was tough. It was a tough place to get through. There's no roads. There's no signposts. There's no. And that's the place I learned that if you're asking for directions, you don't ask someone on a camel for directions, because he'll send you over the hill on a tiny craft, which
without water anywhere.
Which a big motorcycle just can't do.
That's right.
So my advice to everybody is, if you are getting instructions in Mongolia, make sure you stop a vehicle, and one will come along, but definitely ask a vehicle. But they, I remember that I never forget when we asked this guy in a truck, we were looking for this town, and he said, in sign language, because we didn't speak the language. but he drew on this piece of paper. You go down the valley, and the second valley on the left, you go up that, and you'll know it's the right one because there'll be a little clump of 5 trees sitting there, and we're thinking, fucking hell, this just sounds like bullshit, So anyway, we go down, we get past the first valley, and we come up to the second valley, and this has taken us all day to do, And then, sure enough, the second valley, there's these 5 trees sitting there, and we turn left, go up that valley, and there's the village. So, so that's my only piece of advice in Mongolia.
Not people on camels. Yeah, good advice.
Don't ask a person on a camel.
Good advice. But actually, right now, it's not possible to enter Mongolia, I think, because of the Ukraine war and everything.
Oh,
I mean, a lot of things change. And I thought either your long way down trip wouldn't be possible at the moment because of Ethiopia, northern Ethiopia, you can't enter. Long way.
I've heard lots and lots of. We all travel a lot. Or I travel a lot, and you hear lots of stories about you can't go to that place and you can't go to that place. But most of the time, it's usually not true. And if you're a traveler, it's usually not that much of a problem. I think you have to make sure, and I think you have to talk to that country. Yeah. Itself and not listen to the bullshit news media that the crap that they talk on the TV is just insane. Some of the stuff they say, and I think we're now in a period of when news reporting is all just about shock. Reporting, they just want shocking stories, and if they're not shocking enough, they just make up the story to be more shocking, and I mean, so I've noticed, but it's like I traveled a bit in Iran. I mean, at the moment, probably Iran is difficult to get into, but when I traveled through Iran, it was one of the most fabulous countries. The people of Iran are just wonderful, very educated, fantastic food. Northern Iran looks like the Vietnam rice fields. It's just all of northern Iran is just full of rice fields because some of the Iranian rice is some of the best in the world. And then you realize that it's not the Iranian people. It's just this tiny percentage of men with little penises who are trying to be. Really, what we should do really is as men, we should just give up being presidents and prime ministers and leaders of countries and just let women run countries, because it would be far better. We'd live in a far better world if that happened.
I can tell a little story because of my issue with this depression and the death of my son. I was in Qom in Iran. Qom, where the Golden Shrine is, so the Islamic center, the big university. And I looked for a talk with a mullah, a high-ranking mullah in the hierarchy there. And he came, and I had a talk with him about depression, suicide, mental health. And I asked him, how do your religion, the Islam, is dealing with this? And he was smiling at me. I told him my story with my son. So he was smiling at me, and I said, oh, it's very easy. If your son had prayed more to Allah, he would be still alive and would be happy. So it's fucking these systems.
Well, maybe he has a little small penis.
Yes, for sure.
It's such a bullshit. Such a bullshit. But because if in 1,000 years' time, maybe the Quran or the Bible might still be around. I don't know, but if they aren't, nobody would necessarily miss them because they're not. They don't. But science will always be there because it's fact. So will religion and stories survive in the future? who knows? But science will always prevail in that way. And and comments about it's like when to make it simple and is that I remember being in a taxi in Marrakesh quite late at night. I'd come back from one of the greatest nightclubs you'll ever go to, called Africa Chic. If you ever find yourselves in Marrakesh, great live music, fantastic place. Anyway, I'm coming back at 3:00 in the morning. I have to admit I'd had a few drinks, and this taxi was going through all these red lights, and he was going, Inshallah, it's God's will. And I'm thinking, well, Christ, if God invented man, then he invented the traffic light as well. So really, he's going against God's will by not stopping on a traffic light. But I love the fact that it's going to be God's will, and that's the answer to everything. And sadly, it's just not true, is it?
But it's super interesting now that you separate between the religion and the institutions of churches, the Islam and Catholics and something. I think that was the idea was coming up in my mind when you were talking about this. Jesus would be on a motorbike these days if he had a motorbike.
Yeah.
For sure, instead of a monkey or something, he would be ride with a motorbike and with his 12 buddies behind into Jerusalem. Now the question is which one. Now the question is which one.
He'd probably be quite disappointed in the human race if he kind of came back. Because everybody every religion seems to be this sort of have a similar kind of God, but they all.
Yeah. My father always used to do the following joke. He said, "Do you know who the first motorbike rider in history was?" And I said, "No, I don't know." He said, "It was Jesus. Look into the Bible. There is a sentence and it says, Jesus rode on a Triumph to heaven."
3 cylinders, yes, and a Triumph.
Yes. Okay.
Now, whether it was the 3-cylinder or was it the old Bonnie? I wonder.
I think it was an old one.
But there is listen, it's fun, and listen, and everybody has the right to be and who and do whatever they want, and I think the more we just. The more and the less we tell everybody what we are, and the more we just get on and just be who we want to be is a better thing, and it'd be a better thing for people who have troubles in their mind, like your son. Maybe he'd be able to understand the world a bit more if everything was, if people were just left to be what they want to be, and I think it's. I think it's different. I have a friend who took his life a number of years ago as well. And funny enough, I was just it must have been 30 years ago now that he took his life. I was at a party last week, and there was lots of old friends were there, and he popped into my head, and I thought, gosh, this party would have been better had he been there, and so I miss him, and I think he was convinced that he was doing the right thing, and that's brave of him, but we all miss him.
Yeah. And actually, with me, I'm very close to my son. Sometimes closer than when he was alive. Yeah. On my tour on the motorbike, I was always thinking. Sometimes I feel a connection. So I'm not a mysterious guy, but I'm really. But sometimes I feel a connection, and there's the energy. And how you said when I remember when I'm talking about my son, like now, I'm very close to him, and there's an energy. George Lucas called it the force. The Bible called it the soul, but it's something like this. It's this energy is there.
But that's what it is. The reason that your son and my sister and my great friend still live in my heart is because they were so much part of you. So whether or not people believe that the soul goes up into the sky or goes wherever it is, I feel that soul of that person lives in you. you know, and the people that knew my sister and were close to my sister, all of them, you know, we still when we see each other, or we still text each other or whatever, and that's because of the bond of my sister. And I think quite rightly, whenever I'm traveling on the motorcycle and doing these trips, you know, my sister is definitely on my shoulder and looking after him. Sometimes I hear her laughing at me, not with me, when I'm lying on the floor or something like that, or I've done something stupid. But on the long way down, we came around the corner and we saw these two beautiful, a double rainbow. And Ewan said, he said, it looks like Talsha is here, which is my sister. And so he, you know, was touched by her, even though he had not met her, he was still touched by her because we are so close as friends.
Yeah. So when I see a rainbow, I always say hello to my son. It's a sign. A rainbow. It's very impressive. And
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But there you go. But listen, well, that's it's nice. And then, you know, it's nice to talk, and it's nice to talk about things that people find difficult to talk about, because I think the one thing I noticed when you lose somebody close to you, whatever, you know, people around you don't know how to react, and I think that's a more Western thing, isn't it? Because the more third world you become, the more death is very much part of life. Whereas here in what we call modern society, we're very much removed from that, which is a good thing as well, you know. But I think you know, then when you do have death, it can be, people can struggle to deal with it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, and with our fellows rides in Germany, we can do something for rescue some people, because the scientists and the doctors say if depression is known as early as possible, you can deal with it. You can treat it. The problem is that nobody is talking about. You are when you are affected, you don't dare to speak about this, because it's a bad thing all over in your society, and then it's getting really dangerous at the end. So that's why we would like to demonstrate with our bikes, you know, riding through the cities and through the regions, and say, hey, just talk about it. No? Talking could save lives. This is it, and
sure.
This is our mission.
I mean, I think we're in a very we're coming into a really good place for that now here in the Western world, in Europe and America and stuff, and that you know, the younger people today are much more open about talking about it, and friendships, you know. I mean, I'm 56, so when I was young, you know, you had your male friends and the girls had their girlfriends, and it wasn't as mixed necessarily as it is now. Now I look at my children and the friendships they have, they're boys, girls, it's a real mix of people, and they're all talking much more about things, which is a good thing. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one thing out of all of this that has come, is that people are starting to talk a little bit more, which is fantastic, you know, because in the past men have been useless at it, really.
Yeah, though I remember on one fellows ride, a woman get off the bike, came and opened her visor and said to me, "Oh, it's so good that depressions are not able to ride a motorbike." So that means when she's on the motorbike, she feels free. No?
Yeah, no, sure. I think it's fantastic. That's why people go skiing. That's why people, you know, people ride horses, do look after them, because it's not just riding a bike. It's the community around it. It's the clothes you wear. It's the maintenance of the bike. It's what bike you're going to buy next. It's you know, at the moment I'm trying to figure out a way of trying to get a Ducati Desert X. I don't know if you guys have ridden one yet, but but it's one of the nicest bikes I think I've ridden in the last 10 years.
Really?
I think it's an amazing bike, and it really reminds me of when I did the Dakar Rally in 2006.
Wow.
I had a big 650 bike, and very tall, very thin, and it really and that's exactly what the Desert X is trying to do. It's got its heritage from the Cagiva, the Lucky Strike Cagiva that was in
the elephant
the 80s in the Dakar Rally, and that's where their thing has come. But that bike is just is extraordinary, and the electronics on it are so progressive and non-intrusive and interesting to ride, and makes a good rider better, and makes a not such a good rider safer, and it's a nice bike. So, and then I'm sure by the time I get my hands on one of these, then something else will come along, and you'll go like do you remember when the Tenere came out, the 700 Tenere came out, everybody wanted one of those. So there's always something that is coming,
I have in Germany. I have a T7, a 700 Yamaha, and we branded it with the help of Touratech. We branded it as the Fellows bike. So now I'm riding this Fellows rides with this Fellows bike. But the Desert X is interesting because a journalist told me the same as you, that it's a beautiful bike. It's a nice bike, of course, but it's a really good bike. But I was thinking, what's about the electronic? Maybe it's too much electronic for doing long distance?
I mean, the Tenere has no electronics, and the idea of the Tenere or the T7 was to take all of that out, so that if you went out on an adventure, that it was a simple bike. The problem is that no modern bike is simple anymore, because even with the T7, you still have to plug it into a computer to the fucking thing. So, but I just think, and I've ridden the T7 quite a lot as well, and I just think what Ducati have done by making the gap between the wheels slightly bigger, so that when you are on the gravel roads or some dirt roads, it gives you a little bit more stability, and makes it a little bit easier. So it's not just the electronics; it's that they've really thought about the dimensions of the bike and how that affects, and of course, if you start to do some much more extreme off-road, then that wide thing starts to become a little bit of an issue. But on a big bike, not very many people are going to do the extreme stuff. So, but I just think that they've kept it clean, and they've it's a very nice bike, and I think so that's what I'm hunting for at the moment. And now, and I'm sure in a few years' time something else will come along, and I have a whole garage full of those stories. I'm thinking,
I was just asking
that bike.
I was just asking, how big is your fleet at the moment? Because my fleet, I have only 2 bikes, so I think you have much more, don't you?
I have quite a few. When I moved here, I sold a few because I just wasn't really riding them, and I wanted to sell them so that I could so I could buy in something else. But I have maybe 9 or 10 bikes, but they're all different ones. I mean, I have an amazing bike at the moment because I live in the countryside here, and I live beside one of the best trial parks in the country. But I have an I don't know if you've seen these trial bikes called Electric Motion trials bikes, and incredible, and they have a clutch. And the clutch really works. So when you're on trials, when you have a clutch, you need that clutch to give you that power. And oh my God, this thing is incredible. You must have a look at them. They're probably one of the best off-road electric makers, I think, in the world at the moment. They're just the most fantastic, and they're great looking things. And what's really good about them is that if you have a biggish garden in town, you could build a trials course in your garden, and your next door neighbor wouldn't even know that you were riding it. And,
well,
and that's the key. And as well as that, you can buy one bike for your kid, so it can be an 80cc bike, a 125 or a 250. So you don't have to keep buying bikes all the time. So really, really, really clever.
Yeah, I really have to look that up because, I mean, there are a lot of companies now that are building electric motorcycles, and what I was missing is the clutch. It was always missing the clutch. It's just like sitting on an automatic bike.
In trials, you'll never miss the clutch in trials, because that thing will always go. But it's very clever because you have different modes. So you can have the progressive one where you have that rollover where you need to pull the clutch in as an electric bike. Or you can just set it to automatic, or you can do whatever. So it's good. I think I understand about the clutch and changing gears. The live wire that you and I used up through South America. After a couple of days, you really don't mind it. I mean, I remember having a race with the guy in a G6R 750 up in I can't remember where we were. Just coming out of Bolivia into Peru, I think. Anyway, we're going down this very twisty, steep road, and this guy came past us, and I chased him down and passed him, because that's what you have to do. And it was amazing. That bike is amazing. I've taken the live wire on track days. I've gone around race circuits. I've had my knee down. It's and all just on the twist of the throttle. It's pretty cool.
So what's the name of the bike or the company,
the live wire,
the brand?
Live wire.
This one, okay.
The EM. EM.
Electric Motion.
Electric Motion. So we pin it in the show notes.
And they even have so you have the clutch, and then they even have this little lever that when you're going down a really steep hill, slippery, grassy hill, you have this little lever which then acts as engine braking. But then you're regenerating your power. So on your when you go out for the day, you're out for 3 or 4 hours, which the battery will easily do. In your day's riding, you get about 10% regen.
Oh wow!
Which is I remember in by any means in the beginning of the first episode, I think it was, on the Isle of Man, you were riding an MV Agusta, a 4-cylinder MV Agusta. What is the difference now for you, looking back, between this electric Harley and a beautifully built engine like this Italian masterpiece of motorcycle?
Well, I have to say the Italian masterpiece was a pile of crap to ride.
I can imagine.
It was a horror story to ride. The alignment of the wheels weren't aligned, and the bike had a head shake that was ever. But but it's a beautiful bike. But then when you sit the MV Agusta to the side and you put the Harley Davidson live wire beside each other, they are both quite beautiful bikes. To me, I have no allegiance to petrol or electric or I don't. I mean, we all love a V8 engine. We love a V12 engine. Oh my God, the old F1 cars. I remember sitting in Monaco when I was young, watching Formula One drive past and Senna going past you. I mean, incredible. But I don't. To me, it doesn't make any difference. To me, it's a bike, and if it has a feeling and if it's fun to ride, then I really don't mind. So I think it's and I love riding my electric bike up into town. It's very quick. Has incredible acceleration. It's very easy to go through traffic. But then at the same time, I have a Triumph Thruxton that I've just had chopped up and built, and had a big fat front tire put on it, and you know, it's a big noisy thing, and it's a beautiful sort of hipstery looking bike, and you know, and it's got TKC 80s on it, so the thing just looks beautiful, and racing around town, and that is fantastic as well. So I think you should have a motorbike for every feeling. And then
that would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
You just go into your garage and you feel, I'm feeling this today, and off you go.
Yeah.
That's a good
cool.
idea.
Yeah, that's a good
cool.
plan.
Yeah.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
That's cool.
But listen, it's my wife's 60th birthday this weekend, so I'm going to have to leave you guys shortly. We're heading out to celebrate her birthday.
Okay, so we are after this hour, super hour. I will never forget this time. Thank you very much for this. But before I forget it, I just invite you officially now to the Fellows Ride in Berlin at the 3rd of June. If you want to come, even from
June. Well, listen. If you WhatsApp me all the details,
I will.
I'll have a look. I will. You know, funny enough, I have, you know that my mother is German, and I've gone to Germany many times, and I've done hundreds of laps at the Nürburgring on a motorbike, and I've gone all over Germany, but I've never been to Berlin. So,
really?
Yeah.
Come on.
My niece and nephew went to university in Berlin. Never. So
actually, it's a place to be. Not for the motorbikers, but so cultural-wise, film-wise, a movie, everything. Berlin is a spot. Yeah. But you can come with your bike. You can come with
motorbikes and make a movie about it.
Yeah. London, Berlin.
Get Ewan to come along, and we can on our next trip. You know, when we do our next long way.
Long way to Germany. Short way to Germany. That would be a series.
Super. Thank you very much. I'm happy. Totally happy. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to see you both.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a nice,
bye. Ciao, ciao.
With your wife.
Tschüss. Vielen Dank.
All the best. Bitte. Cheers. Bye.
Ja. Fellows Ride, der Podcast. Mit Gästen aus der Motorradszene übers Motorradfahren und mentale Gesundheit.